Hello, everybody. Just before we start this podcast, I just wanted to apologise for the massive delay in the release of this episode. This was recorded about 5 weeks ago now. It was recorded like an hour after they announced that David Tennant and Catherine Tate would be returning to Doctor Who. I just have not had the time and lots of stuff going on, so I haven't been able to edit it sooner than this. So I'm really sorry that it's been massively delayed. I'm really hoping that we're going to be getting more consistent podcasts soon. But yeah, I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of context when you suddenly hear the pod and we're all talking about how they've just announced it when it was actually a month ago. That is why. But anyway, enjoy another episode of KerVAM. Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new edition of KerVAM, a Doctor Who podcast where generally we talk about all things DVDs, Blu-rays, special features, everything about the physical media releases of Doctor Who. If you didn't already know, we're on episode like 25, 26, 27, one of those, can't remember which one, I always forget. So you probably know by now what we do. But today, obviously, we've got some other news to talk about as well, because we also focus on news in the world of Doctor Who. So we're going to discuss the collection releases, our favourite ones, future releases, what we'd like to see. But obviously, we're going to start by focusing on two pretty massive pieces of news about RTD2, which are the return of David Tennant and Catherine Tate, and the casting of the 14th Doctor in Ncuti Gatwa. I am, of course, as always, joined by my three trusty guests, Ryan, Charlie and Bill, to discuss all things Doctor Who. Charlie, I gather you spent the last hour and a half scrolling through Twitter, waiting for the announcement. Was it a fun experience waiting? Did they sell you a little bit like it was going to be at 6 o'clock and then it wasn't?
Kind of, yeah. So I sort of found out about this all at like 5:45, 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
I've been sort of out of the loop with all the speculation today because my first major final exam is tomorrow.
Okay.
Not very convenient timing. But yeah.
Yeah.
So I've not really been in the loop with the speculation, but I saw this at about 6 and then literally just kept on refreshing Twitter to see if like every 5 minutes or so, just to see if there was a big announcement. There was loads of rumors. There was 6:15 maybe, there was 6:30, there was 7, obviously it was at 7. And then I saw it, and so many people, you included, Elliot, were saying Tennant and Tate, and I was sort of thinking that myself, that it was kind of anticlimactic by the time it came around. Like, that was kind of obvious.
Yeah, that's what we were expecting. Yeah, exactly.
So it's weird because the biggest pieces of news, there's not actually all that much to talk about because we don't know anything beyond the fact that they're returning. Obviously, It's great that they are, they're the most, one of the most beloved doctors and one of the most beloved companions. It's brilliant they're returning. But there's not actually that much to say. So
yeah, well, we'll still try and drag it out in a podcast because that's what we do. Yeah. But Ryan, it seems like Russell is becoming more of a troll than ever before with his sort of little Instagram comments and things. He seems to like to just tease us and then randomly drop us information. This was a bit unexpected, wasn't it, after last week?
Yeah, definitely unexpected. It seems like I won't be surprised if he's going to be doing this thing of every Sunday he's going to be dropping something big about his era. His new era. I mean, first we get the 14th Doctor, now we're getting Tennant and Donna coming back. I won't be surprised if they announce like another Doctor companion team returning or something, a little hint about what his plans for 2023. He could be planning anything, whether it be next Sunday or the Sunday after, who knows?
No, it's all very interesting. And I think certainly now every Sunday from now on, we're all going to be like, I wonder what the Doctor announcement of the week is going to be. I'm sure at some point it will die down.
Something I saw the other day. So obviously last week there was Ncuti and Russell's interviews at the BAFTAs last Sunday. I do find it interesting how he said, like, we've done this big announcement, but we're just going to let the era to the side for now, until after October. And then here it comes with this massive, here's Tennant and Donna for the 60th next year. It's just a bit... I don't know.
It doesn't quite fit with what he said, does it? Yeah.
I mean, maybe he was just trying to throw a curveball deliberately. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it was interesting. And Bill, it seems that the RTD2 way of announcing stuff is through emojis rather than, big reveal videos at Wimbledon or whatever. It's now we just announce stuff via emojis. It's a new way of doing it. I don't know. Are you enjoying this series of announcements so far?
I am actually. I mean, I think it's certainly a very new approach, like you say, of doing it. But I think it's a very good way because, you get the speculation like going and going as soon as it's posted for an hour or 2 hours, up until the moment it's officially announced and everything. And I think that's really good in like getting Doctor Who like back into the conversation, as it were, really. Because obviously us fans will always talk about Doctor Who, but with something like, especially with David Tennant and Catherine Tate coming back, I think that will really hopefully help the show get back into the public conscience a bit more, and get the general audience kind of talking about it in a way that they kind of haven't really for at least the past 10 or so years. I really enjoy it. I think it is different. It is a very different approach, but I think Russell he completely gets how to do marketing, especially for something like Doctor Who. Because, when you look at it, we've only got like little like drips of information so far about the 60th and series 14 and everything. But already it's more than enough for us to start speculating and talking about what could happen and everything. Whereas, with Chris Chibnall, obviously this is through no fault of his own, but Chris Chibnall, for whatever reason, especially in the past year or so, just hasn't really been doing the marketing in the same way. And a lot of the time it's felt like a lot of the Jodie era stuff has been, I think they've only started marketing series 13 and then Legends of the Sea Devils like a week or two before they started.
Short time,
which is, I mean, it's a very different approach to what Russell is doing now. And I think, I'm not going to say that I think the way Chris Chibnall has been doing it is wrong and the way Russell's been doing it is right or whatever. I don't think that's the case at all, but I think it says something how it really, the way Russell does it, it really gets people talking about the show, which they just haven't been in quite the same way for a good number of years.
No, it's many good points there you make. I think it's really interesting about the marketing approach from the Chibnall era and transitioning over to RTD2. I think I can't remember a friend of mine said it to me, I think, about how almost the idea of promoting a show just a few weeks before is very much what you do with a sort of brand new 9 p.m. BBC One drama that nobody really knows anything about, so you're not going to build it up over 6 months of hype. You're just going to do a trailer 3 weeks before and then have it. Whereas I feel, and so it's almost like they were saying Doctor Who's just another drama, rather than it deserves that extra marketing and that extra long-term build-up that I think it should do because of the nature of the programme and the history it's got. And so I think it's very positive to see that RTD certainly looks like he's going down this route. I think he's probably just a sort of character of person who likes being in the limelight a bit more than Chris. That's probably one way to put it. Chris has definitely been a very much, barely done any interviews, very much just wanted to kind of not get involved in that side of things very much, which I think when you're the showrunner of Doctor Who, you kind of have to really be able to sell your show. And I do just think Russell that comes more naturally to him. And so I think he's going to really strike that balance a lot better. There's no, taking all the socials down for 24 hours for no reason, like we had with Flux, and then that won a marketing award, apparently, because that's great marketing. But there we go. Anyway, this isn't a podcast where we dump on Chris Chibnall, because I'm sure there are many other ones out there you could do that. Charlie, you've said you're generally excited about Tennant and Tate returning. What do you think this is all about? Like, how do you think this is going to work? Because Russell put out this little quote in the press release that's just like, oh, it could be a flashback, it could be a trick, it could be this, it could be that. It's like, he basically doesn't want to tell us anything, which is totally fair. Like, he's just trolling us, but essentially. But it's not like, apart from the sort of, it's a story from within then the series, slotted into series 4. Their story ended very, definitively. There was an end to their story of the two of them together, and so for it to be after that would be very odd. So I don't know. Do you have any early theories on what it could all be about?
To be honest, I did see this earlier when in my long scroll through Twitter about half an hour after the announcement, and I did think like I kind of rather it just be in, slotted into series 4 somewhere. It doesn't really matter where, but sometime during that, because I feel if it's set after that and Donna somehow doesn't die after remembering the Doctor, it kind of cheapens it a bit. I mean, even so, I feel it might be that during, his crazy Time Lord Victorious era between Waters of Mars and End of Time, he decides that actually he's going to go and see Donna. By some miracle, she doesn't die, and then they go and have the 60th. That's probably my best theory. If not, then maybe, I don't know, because there were obviously all the rumors about Tennant being 14. I've seen some people saying they haven't explicitly said that Ncuti is actually the 14th Doctor. So I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. I still think he's going to be the 10th. I really, But I do get what people are saying as well. Yeah, I mean, it could be, I don't know, it could be maybe the meta crisis or something. I'm not too sure, but whatever happens, if it's not set during series 4, I still feel that would cheapen Journey's End just a bit, which I feel would be a shame. But at the same time, I feel that's kind of overridden by the fact that Tennant and Tate are returning anyway.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know, Ryan, do you have any stronger theories than that on how it all could play out?
I think it could be during series 4, and it better be during series 4 because, again, Stolen Earth and Journey's End is one of my personal favourite stories of all time. I think it might be Russell's best story, and one of the reasons why it's so good was because even though it's this big adventure, it ends in such a massive tragedy where he says goodbye to all of them, but particularly Donna's goodbye is the most heartbreaking out of all of them, and I think it's the big emotional crux of the story is that tragic end of her losing her memories and then the fact that she can't remember him. And if it was set after that and she's fine, it would really, it would cheapen it. In a way, they kind of sort of did that a little bit with Rose back in when she seemed like she definitely left at Doomsday, but then she came back for some appearances in series 4, which I thought was good, but then, of course, you had to have another sort of similar ending in Journey's End where she goes on with a human doctor, which I always found was a little bit iffy to begin with. That was kind of the only thing about that two-part I wasn't a huge fan of was the whole meta-crisis doctor, mainly because of how it paid off with Rose in her second ending. And there's a question, because if it is the meta-crisis doctor, then why isn't Rose involved? But it's going to be... Yes, it is. I mean, I'm not surprised by this news because, of course, they were the most popular TARDIS team during Russell's era, and that series in particular is Russell's best series. It's the most successful period of modern Doctor. Even I was excited about it at the time because of all the fact that it's like they're doing some big creative stuff like each and every story, and of course it was going to end with that big 2-part finale, and so it didn't really surprise me that they announced that they were going to be coming back. I just hope they aren't the only TARDIS team returning, because if they're the only TARDIS team returning, then it's going to be like, oh, Russell's more in favour of his own team. It's going to be a bit more, seem a bit biased a little bit, because, I mean, I would love that to have Matt Smith come back with Amy and Rory, and in particular, my dream TARDIS team, Peter Capaldi and Clara. I would love for them to come back. I mean, I'm just really hope Peter Capaldi decides. I mean, I know he said in the past, like, he wasn't keen on doing, like, anniversary stuff or all that, but I just hope Russell convinces him, because I really want Capaldi to come back with Clara.
Definitely.
That is my dream team, and I just want them to share the spotlight with the other Doctor companions and the new Doctor as well for the 60th.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really, this press release sort of almost raises more questions than it answers, because it also says that they're currently filming scenes for the 60th anniversary celebrations, whatever that means. So it doesn't sort of definitively state whether there's a singular 60th anniversary special, whether there's multiple specials, exactly what it is. It's very unclear. I mean, I know the kind of commonly held fan rumor is that there's going to be multiple specials with multiple doctors, sort of different doctor in each special is kind of the original idea. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's sort of a Tennant and Tate kind of special, and then say a Paul McGann special, and then a Capaldi special, or a Matt Smith special, and then or maybe like a mini series of those that then all comes together into one story at the end of it. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that's a bit too much to ask. That's kind of the fan. I'd love that as a fan, but I don't know. Be interesting.
I think that may be a good way of doing the 60th anniversary, where each one focuses on a different doctor before they all sort of team up and are having to unite with the new doctor to face some sort of big threat. I mean, it'd be something different, because in the past it's always just been one story with like the 3 doctors, the 5 doctors, and Day of the Doctor. It's always just been one story. So to have it just be like a collection of stories, like a mini series, I think it would be a good way of doing, with the last episode being on the 23rd of November. I think it'd be good. I think it'd be a good and different way of doing the 60th anniversary this time round. Yeah.
I do think it'd just be nice to approach it a different way, especially as we know that the majority of next year isn't going to have any Doctor Who in it, because as far as we know, Russell is only going to be doing stuff towards the end of the year. So whereas those previous anniversary specials, you kind of had most of a series within that year anyway, whereas this time around we might not get that. So to have a bit more than just one celebratory special, I think could be quite a big thing for it. I don't know, Bill, what's your take on all this? What's your kind of hope for how the 60th anniversary sort of plays out in terms of episodes and things?
Well, basically just the same as what you guys just been saying, really. Like, I also would really like it if, we get a kind of, as you say, mini series of specials next year, and then the actual 14th Doctor with Ncuti Gatwa and Series 14 is in the following year. Because I think that is a good way of just doing, like Ryan says, doing something different with the anniversary specials, of not just having, kind of still doing a multi-Doctor story, like if they're linked together, but doing it in a way that feels different and fresh, and more interesting in a way. Because, as much as us fans, would love to see all the Doctors on screen together in one special and everything. And, it is good when we do get stuff like that. I think it would be a good approach to kind of do something different to that. I think if I do feel like they're not just going to have one special for the 60th. I feel like there's at least going to be something else, especially with, as you were saying earlier, with reading that thing out on the official website for the press release, like how they specifically said celebrations, like plural, not just a special, a singular special. So I would love to see, like, Matt Smith, Karen Gillan, Arthur Darvill, or Jenna Coleman with Peter Capaldi, or whoever just coming back. As well as David Tennant and Catherine Tate, obviously. Because, again, like Ryan was saying, it would really help to kind of just celebrate, at least, maybe not necessarily all the eras of Doctor Who, but at least more than one, and that way people won't be saying, Russell's relying too much on his own past era, he's relying too much on Series 4 or David Tennant era. He would actually be bringing stuff which would kind of unite different types of Doctor Who fans, like fans different eras, which would be really interesting to see, and hopefully they do at least something a bit like that.
That's certainly what we're hoping for, is something for all the fans. Let's bring some classic Doctors back as well. I mean, you never know, we might get them in the centenary, but if not, let's bring them back next year and do something with that as well. My final question for you all, you've all got to answer this, about Tennant and Tate returning, is, in the 60th anniversary special, celebrations, whatever we call it, is the 10th Doctor going to meet the new Doctor?
Yes, I think he will. I just think it'd be such a missed opportunity if he doesn't meet the new Doctor. Otherwise, it's going to be like, well, if he doesn't meet the new Doctor, then what was the point of bringing him back anyway? So, yes, I hope that happens.
Charlie?
I think he will, but I don't hope it's so much that the 60th anniversary is just to set up Ncuti Gatwa as the new Doctor. As much as I am looking forward to Ncuti, as we'll explain later in this podcast, I don't think a celebration of the past 60 years of Doctor Who is the best way to introduce a new Doctor. It's kind of like, like how we saw a bit of 12 in Day of the Doctor, but if they introduce him in there, that would be way too hectic, but maybe a bit towards the end, or just to a limited capacity, maybe in the final episode of a potential mini series they'll do. I'm not sure, but I think it'll definitely happen.
I think it's going to be it's the first fascinating thing really is going to be what happens at the end of the centenary special. Like, do we see Ncuti as the Doctor at the end of it? Because if we do, then you've got to imagine we'll then pick up with him in the first of whatever it is the 60th anniversary. Whereas if it's just, ends on a shot of Jodie regenerating, then you could go anywhere with that. Which I think is really interesting.
I think I've heard a rumor, and this could be just a complete made-up rumor, and this could just be absolutely false. I heard rumors that there's going to be after Jodie regenerates, it's going to immediately cut to each of the Doctors that could be featuring in the 60th, and it's going to be the piece for the 60th. And I heard rumors that it could be Paul McGann, David Tennant, Matt Smith, and Peter Capaldi. But
I mean, that would be the ultimate choice, really, for me.
And there's no way Christopher Eccleston would come back. No, absolutely not.
No, it's not going to happen, is it? As much as we'd like it to.
Yeah. So I think those four will be the good choices, and it'll be also great to have Paul McGann in, because he's one of my personal favourites ever. So having more of him would be an absolute dream. So I wouldn't be surprised that as soon as Jodie regenerates, we then cut to those four Doctors, and that's each one doing their own separate thing, and how it ties into what's going to be coming up for the following year.
That would be a very cool way to do it, to be fair. That would be really, really interesting. I think I'd like that. Well, Bill, you get the final word. Is Ncuti going to meet David Tennant next year?
See, I don't know, because it could go either way. I mean, it could be that, as you say, we end the centenary with Ncuti, in some capacity, and then that leads into the 60th somehow, and maybe he meets the 10th Doctor, and Donna maybe meets the 11th and 12th Doctors as well. Or it could just be that Russell decides to kind of just let the 60th kind of just be about celebrating the show's past, and then decides to look to the future with Series 14 and Ncuti Gatwa the year after. So, I mean, in some ways, I would kind of prefer it like Charlie if it was the latter, because I feel like if they try to get, Ncuti in with all the other past Doctors, again, as like I was saying earlier, as much as we would like to see all the Doctors together and everything, or even just a few past and present Doctors together, we kind of have to think, well, as much as that would be nice, would it be perhaps a bit too much in terms of not being able to tell the overall kind of story for whatever Russell's got planned for David Tennant and Catherine Tate? Maybe that storyline will kind of get a bit lost if Ncuti Gatwa is then in it as well. And maybe it would just be better if, like I say, they just kind of let the past Doctors, or just Tennant and Tate, have their own special, and then lead into Ncuti Gatwa in 2024.
Yeah, exactly. I think, ultimately only time will tell on this. We're just guessing. We're speculating. I think we want to see a great celebration of Doctor Who next year, but also looking forward to Ncuti in whenever he may first appear as well. Will be very, very exciting. And so, speaking of Ncuti Gatwa, of course, we are moving on to talk about the new Doctor. We just haven't had the time to record in the last 7 days, and it meant that we ended up with some extra news to talk about. But yes, the big news of a week ago that I kind of unexpectedly saw on a BBC breaking news notification on my phone, which was quite unexpected, that Ncuti was the new Doctor. I missed all the, the little tweet or Instagram post he put out, getting the hype up and all that kind of thing. And so suddenly it was, we've got a new 14th Doctor, the new Doctor. What? Did not expect this. So, Ryan, Ncuti Gatwa. Firstly, did you know who he was before they announced it? Did you know who he was?
I wasn't entirely familiar. I have seen his sort of face before on. Of course, he was in Sex Education, which I've only seen bits and pieces of. I haven't watched them all in its entirety. And but I did remember seen him in that show, though I didn't remember his name. But so when he showed up, it's like he's the new Doctor. I was like, oh, it's that guy from that show I saw bits and pieces. So it was a bit surprising because he had only done one well-known show beforehand. So it was a bit of a surprise, but again, seeing him in those interviews with Russell and everything, he seems to have a lot of likable energy about him, which he does. As I think he does have a certain energy about him that does make him like a good fit for a Doctor, and I'm confident that Russell definitely picked him because he was definitely the right person for the job. So
for sure.
It was, and when I first heard the news, it was like, oh, it's him, and then I was just like, okay, he's done a good choice there. I felt at first it was first surprise, and then immediate ease relaxation afterwards. So I will say it was a little bit of a shock, but then all of a sudden it was just out of the blue. There was like that headline. It was just like, oh, it was just got announced. Like there was no like big like announcement like they did in the past with Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi, and Jodie Whittaker, where it was like a special TV event or posted during the sports match. It's literally, it was just posted on website and then interviews at the BAFTA Awards. So
exactly.
Different. Again, Russell's definitely trying to market things in a different way this time around. So it was definitely a total surprise, but I am confident that Ncuti will do a good job. And it was also great to see that Sylvester McCoy and Peter Capaldi did like little messages for him, which I thought was cool. And frankly, if anything gets Capaldi's stamp of approval, it's good enough for me.
There you go, Renee. Yeah, exactly. No, he certainly seems to like the choice. As I think Colin had said some nice things about it as well. So that was really, really great to see. Bill, I don't know, did you know much about Ncuti before you heard about the announcement? And what was your sort of initial response when you saw it?
Well, I wasn't at all familiar with him as an actor beforehand. Although I've since started watching Sex Education and everything to kind of get familiar with him and everything. But as it kind of came in, as much as I didn't know him, I kind of immediately kind of thought, and just watching him from interviews and everything, I thought, he's definitely got the energy and the kind of like spark that something like the Doctor requires and everything, and the eccentricity and everything. So I think he's a really, really good choice, and I think it's even better with something like Russell's writing as well, because I think that will really kind of, I mean, having now seen bits of him in Sex Education, yes, he's definitely one of the best bits about that show. Like he steals pretty much every scene that he's in, like he steals a limelight. And as much as he's good in that, I think he is going to be quite different as a Doctor to what he is in that show and everything. And I think Russell's writing will help him as an actor to kind of do something new and different with the role. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the new 14th Doctor. It's nice to finally have a face for the 14th Doctor.
Yes, for me, part of it was just relief that we won't have any more ridiculous articles or rumors or fan speculation on who it might be. It just was getting I was kind of a bit bored of it, to be honest. I got to that point where it was fun to start with speculating, but we reached that point where I was like, let's just find out now. And then I thought what was great really was that it was one that nobody had theorized about. Like I hadn't seen any articles about it or anything. It was like even more of a surprise because it wasn't anybody who we expected it to be, which was impressive given that he was given the job in February, like 3 months they kept it quiet and it didn't end up leaking in the press in some form or whatever. Is very impressive, I think, really. But Charlie, what about you? What was your first impression when you saw the news?
It's a bit of an interesting story with me, because it wasn't like, you get people on I've got like a Discord server for my YouTube channel, and you get people fan casting and that all the time, and someone said, like, in big capitals, Ncuti Gatwa is the 14th Doctor, and I thought, oh, that'd be quite good after looking him up, and then I went onto Twitter and I saw, oh, this is actually real. Okay, but it was just a bit of a strange way to find out, but I haven't seen Sex Education, and looking at what you were saying in your video, Elliot, that's kind of the main thing he's been in. Yeah, so if you haven't seen it, you kind of don't know who he is. So,
to be honest,
I'll watch it at some point, probably before series 14, but that's 2 years away anyway. I feel he, from his interview at the BAFTAs and things like that, he looks like the very eccentric type of Doctor that we could really do with. I feel. Obviously, it's impossible to predict his character, but I can definitely see him being really good as a kind of Matt Smith style Doctor, like very frantic and energetic. Having like a darker side, I feel that would work best. I can't see him being similar to like Capaldi or someone. No. But generally, I'm very excited for RCD2, and looking forward to where he takes it.
Yeah, I think it's great to have that main actor now that we know is going to be kind of the face of this new era, really. And just seeing, as I have seen all of Sex Education, and just seeing he really has that sort of eccentricity, I think, that really fits the character of the Doctor. Very sort of quirky, like high energy. As you say, Charlie, I think Matt Smith's probably the kind of feels like the most obvious kind of comparison in terms of the type of character. Obviously, Russell might write him completely different to that, and it might be, something more like Capaldi or whatever. We have no idea ultimately, and I'm sure that Ncuti could take on, whatever kind of character of the Doctor that Russell comes up with, Russell wants to go with. But I do think that the sort of Matt Smith comparison might be quite a good one, and I think that would be a really great energy and vibe to bring to the show, really, because I just think he's got such great talent as an actor, fundamentally.
And it's funny. If I don't know if they announced there's going to be a new season of Sex Education, and if there is,
I'm pretty sure there is.
How is Ncuti still going to be a part of that, or is he? There's going to be a thing where he's having to leave the show, and his main energy is on Doctor Who, or he's going to be able to do both at the same time.
Yeah, I haven't looked specifically into it. I think that they haven't gone back into production yet and there is a new series commissioned for Sex Education, but they haven't gone into production on it. I mean, I'd certainly imagine that Doctor Who would take priority in that sense, given that he is the lead role in Doctor Who. Like, if they needed to kind of reduce his role in Sex Education, then maybe that's what they would have done. And I guess you'd imagine that Ncuti wasn't going for auditions for a role in February, knowing he then wouldn't be able to commit to the filming time whenever it is. It could still be the case that actually, the next 3 months they're going to be shooting 60th anniversary stuff that doesn't involve him, and he won't actually need to start filming until September or whatever. Like, could be the case, or he could be filming tomorrow, and we have absolutely no idea. I think it's great. I mean, it's crazy to think, like, this past week they've been filming with David Tennant and Catherine Tate in Cardiff, and we didn't know anything about it. Like, they've kept it completely quiet. I think one person tweeted about it, David Tennant being in Cardiff, but it seems that Russell is kind of doing a great job of keeping stuff quiet, but also giving us information, which is the balance that Chris just never seemed to quite get right, I think, in his era, where he would go to desperate lengths to keep stuff quiet. Even then, after it then leaked, he would still stay quiet about it, even though we all knew it, aka, John Barrowman returning, or the Master returning, or Sacha Dhawan as the Master, all that kind of stuff that basically leaked, and then he just pretended it didn't exist, whereas Russell seems to just be kind of taking the initiative with it, which I really like, I think. I don't know, Charlie, do you think that that's kind of working as an approach at the moment?
I think it is, yeah. I feel since the 60th is like a year and 6 months away, I feel, I don't want the announcements to be out too quickly. I don't want it to be an announcement next Sunday, an announcement the Sunday after, and nothing until next April or whatever. I do want him to pace himself somewhat with the marketing. But yeah, it is good how we know some things and enough to bring casual viewers in, rather than just like, for example, I feel the best example of Chibnall era marketing is the first trailer for Flux, which told us basically nothing. That one where it was just sort of shots of characters and then it ended. I'm glad he's giving us information, but not too much. Like you said, the right balance.
Yeah, let's not do a Stephen Moffat revealing John Sims returning as the Master in Series 10. That was always my example of a step too far, wrong one way, and then Chris giving us nothing and giving us terrible trailers is kind of the other extreme. So hopefully Russell will land somewhere in the middle, and we might get perfect marketing for Doctor Who. But we can only hope. We can only hope.
It's so funny. It's a few years ago when I was doing I was chatting with someone at work about this. As I was saying, like, if Chibnall was to leave Doctor Who, I would hope that they get some good talent. And I even said something along the lines of, I wish they would get the people behind stuff like His Dark Materials or Sex Education to do it. And lo and behold, now
there you go.
got a production company who's done His Dark Materials, pretty much handling the production, and one of the stars of Sex Education. So I think I'm pretty much, I pretty much kind of will this to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I've wished for it, and I've got my wish.
Yeah. So, overall, guys, are we all pretty excited for Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor? I don't feel like pretty much all the fandom response I've seen has been just very positive and excited about it. Really, whether you knew him that well or not, I feel like it's just been a generally positive vibe. I don't know. Were you all feeling very positive about it?
Yeah, definitely excited about it. With the past few Doctors have been sort of very different. We've had with Peter Capaldi to Jodie Whittaker, and even to an extent with Joe Martin as well, and now Ncuti Gatwa. It feels like they've definitely been more. They're definitely going more different with each Doctor, which I do very much appreciate, and I definitely now have more and more confidence that Ncuti Gatwa is going to be amazing, and I'm really hoping that his era is up there with the likes of, say, the Peter Capaldi era as one of the best eras we've had.
Yeah, for sure. So that's certainly the hope. Charlie, overall excited for it all?
Yeah, absolutely. I've not seen anything that Gatwa is in, and I can already tell. I can definitely see him being up there in my ranking by the time his first season rolls around. I feel he'll not only be good as a Doctor, but getting the show back into the public eye. What with RTD coming back as well, I feel it's just going to be a very stable era in that sense.
Yeah, it does just feel like everything's heading in the right direction again. Like, we've still got the Centenary Special, and I feel like there's kind of going to be a section of fans who really enjoy that, and that's a great moment, but kind of it's not that important in the grand scheme of things. Whereas actually it's going to be all about that audience coming back for the 60th, coming back to see David Tennant and Catherine Tate again, coming back for a new Doctor, for Russell, for all of that. And hopefully that will bring the general viewing public back to Doctor Who. Well, that's certainly what I'm hoping. And Bill, are you just overall excited for what's to come?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it really just feels really exciting. And I'm not saying that I'm not kind of, in a way, at least a little excited for the centenary, but I'm definitely a lot more excited for the RTD2 era, because based just purely on these, like I say, little snippets of news that we've gotten so far, we still don't know much, but again, it's more than enough to keep us going. If this is it for a few months or whatever, it's still more than enough for us to continue speculating and for just the general public to be talking about, really, which again just hasn't happened for a good few years anyway, in the same way. I think it's a really exciting time, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what Russell has got in store for the 60th and beyond that. Yeah.
Exactly. And well, let's segue into our next section where we're looking to the past and the future, as hopefully the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who will be doing. But we're, of course, talking about the Doctor Who collection Blu-ray box sets. A staple, I think, of this podcast, really. We kind of podcast is all about, that's our number one thing, is Doctor Who Blu-ray box sets, I think, because there's so much to talk about with them all. Hopefully we will get the season 22 box set at some point in the near future. apparently the next Doctor Who magazine, which comes out I think in a week or two, is going to have the preview of the box set with all the contents listed on it. So it really should be soon, because we've been waiting for several months for that now. But yeah, today we just wanted to have, I mean, this was going to be a bigger part of the podcast until all this news came out, but we just kind of wanted to chat about what have been our favourite collection box sets so far, and also what we might get over the next couple of years, what's sort of realistic, but also just what we'd like to see from the collection range, really. So there's obviously been 10 collection box sets so far. And I think it's quite hard to pick a favourite in many ways in terms of what they are. I know we've all got a kind of differing number of them that we've actually kind of own. So Charlie, I'll come to you first. I think you've probably got the least amount of collection boxes. I don't know. How many have you got, Bill? Or actually, let's go around the room. How many have you all got of the 10 so far? Bill, how many have you got?
So I think if I just look, I think I've only got 2, maybe 3.
Okay.
So I've got season 17 limited edition, and I've got the standard edition of season 26. I, of course, wanting to get all the others at some other point, but because I'm still relatively new to collecting them, I haven't had a chance as of yet.
Yeah. What about you, Charlie?
I've got 4 of them. I've got 26.
Yep.
And then the 2021 releases of H24 and 17.
Very nice. And Ryan?
I've been collecting all of them since the beginning. I've got the full set so far.
Yeah, same here, yeah.
And hopefully my pre-order for season 22 comes unscathed. I'm hoping it comes out all right. I've got the full 11, hopefully.
Yeah, that's the hope, isn't it? Well, I think it's 11 next. Is it 10 next or 11 next? I can't even remember at this stage. Yeah, I don't know. I'll work it out in a minute. Bill, out of the ones you've got, what would you say is your sort of favourite one? And are there any particular, or just any kind of particular favourite features, or just favourite things about the ones that you've been able to have a watch of?
So mostly it's just been season 17 that I've kind of been able to watch. So like as kind of like my first like experience of the collection range, I really enjoyed it because it kind of introduced me to, all the special features that are kind of normal for all these collection releases, such as like Behind the Sofa and all the in-depth documentaries for stories and episodes and everything. Because I really enjoy that, because it's, the DVDs were good in giving us some of those documentaries as well, but I feel like with the collection Blu-rays, it's kind of, they've gone one extra step in terms of just how in-depth a lot of these documentaries are. And with stuff like Behind the Sofa and the interviews and everything, you kind of get a sense of just people just being able to be brutally honest with, whatever episode they're watching or talking about. And you didn't really get that in the same way with the DVD range. Not to say that was a bad thing about the DVDs, because they're still good in their own way, but I think it just improves and just expands upon what the DVDs were able to start off, basically. So I think I've just been I mean hopefully I'll be able to get some more, but as much as season 17 might be a bit of a weird choice to start off with, I've really enjoyed what I've seen of it. At least the special features anyway.
I think situations like that just really show how good the collection box sets are, in a sense, really, that it's almost the quality of the stories isn't really that important. Like, obviously, I want to have good Doctor Who stories to watch as well, but almost everything else that's included can still make it a thoroughly enjoyable box set, whether it's documentaries discussing, the show, you've got archive stuff, you've got so many different things in there that it can, still make a good box set out of a slightly less good season, shall we say. But then, Charlie, out of your little selection of 4, what would you say your favourite so far?
A slightly better season, shall we say, than 17, season 8. It's a very strong box set. I only got this one in February, actually. So it's I watched this throughout February and March, and it's pretty brilliant. Besides the stories, which I feel are pretty consistent in terms of quality. Like, I feel the only real dip is Colony in Space, and even that isn't
bad,
awful.
is it? Yeah.
Whereas in season 7, you've got Destiny of the Daleks, Creature from the Pit, The Horns of Nimon. It's very rocky, and at the same time you've got City of Death, which it's just a bit all over the place. But yeah, season 8 is just a brilliant box set. We've got the direct route, we've got Terrence and Me, and the behind the sofas are great as well. I feel Sacha Dhawan especially was fantastic. I feel that was
so
my
much
favorite.
good stuff on that box set, isn't there? I forget how good that was. It's definitely like what I just forget about sometimes. I'm like, actually, that's full of great stuff. There's that great feature with John Levine and Katie Manning where they go back to Allport as well. That's really fun, where they revisit all the sort of locations from the Demons, meet the people who were there when they were filming it and were kids at the time and stuff. That's just all really fun stuff, I think. So no, you're right. That's a very, very good choice for sure. And then, well, Ryan, you've got all 10 to pick from. I think it's 10. So can you pick one that is your like overall favorite?
Oh.
Trying to not focus purely on episode quality and trying to think of the box set as a whole, which is a real challenge. Or you can name 2 or 3.
Well, season 8 is definitely one because of all the documentaries that have been listed. Such brilliant documentaries, and again, slightly a little bit biased because it's my favourite John Pertwee season. But the fact that they had all that extra new stuff with it just made it all the more special, and also a little bit of special is the fact that that was the box set that sort of kicked off this whole podcast.
Of course it was, yeah.
We discussed. So that particular set always has a little bit of a unique specialness to me now because of what it's led to, and also season 12 because again, one of my favourite seasons, Tom Baker's first season. It was, of course, the very first Blu-ray collection set to be released. So, and they had some pretty good stuff on there as well. Introducing Behind the Sofas and the new documentary, updated documentary for Revenge of the Cybermen, and the big interview with Tom Baker as well. It proved that the collection range could work. I thought it was a great first outing for them to show that this is the home release at its best point and its ultimate point, basically. It's pretty much everything. So, and hopefully it shows it's not the last because we don't want any more special editions. But it was a really good starting off point. And if I had to pick one more,
It's tough.
Maybe, and this is gonna again a weird choice, but maybe season 17.
Oh, okay.
Because again, as messy and just all over the place that season was. I mean, who could forget Arato and all the time on?
Has to get a reference every week. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and it did give us a lot of great documentaries. I mean, you had the whole new documentary for Destiny of the Daleks. And also the new Tom Talks as well, with him recounting different facts of his life, and there was also that really good documentary about Douglas Adams as well, which I think was definitely the highlight of that box set. And of course, it had to give us another edition of Sharda because of course they had to.
Obviously.
And so that was definitely a great box set. And if I was to pick another honorary mention, it would be season 24. Because, I mean, even though that's a short season, they packed a lot of stuff into that, like the new documentaries on Delta the Bannerman, and also that big documentary about the making of the season and everything that was going on around it at the time. I thought it was really, really informative about what Andrew Cartmel wanted to bring to Doctor Who and some of the challenges he faced at the very beginning. So I thought that was a really good set as well. Yeah,
no, totally. Some very, very good choices there for sure. I mean, I was thinking about this for a while. I think one of mine's probably season 14, just because you've got things like the R. Sarah Jane documentary on there, and you've got the Who's Doctor Who Revisited, obviously alongside all the great stories, and there's a lot of special features from the DVD range as well carried over to that. So that I think was a pretty, really good one. I think it's interesting you say about season 12, and I think one of the great things about the season 12 Blu-ray is that, like, it doesn't feel too much like the first one. they sort of did such a good job that you're not going to go there in 5 years' time and you kind of be watching them all through and then get to season 12 and go, oh, well, this is clearly the first one because it's a bit lacking in content or a bit, messy in places or whatever. Like, it feels like it stands up against, the rest of them. And I think, it varies season to season. As you say, season 24 is packed full of stuff compared to some other ones that, where, or maybe season 10, I think, was an example of where there was just a lot more that was already done on the DVD range. There's less kind of new stuff that's needed and things. So it just depends on the season, I think, to a large extent. And I think, and to be fair, one of the documentaries that was a shame never went anywhere from the season 12 box set was the little one they did about the sort of history of that year or something. I can't remember quite what it was called, but it was meant to be sort of focusing on sort of the news of that year basically, with sort of tenuous links to Doctor Who.
Was it something tomorrow time or something?
I'll have to look it up. Tomorrow, I know Tomorrow's Times is the Doctor in the newspapers through that era of the of that Doctor. But this was called something else, and they were planning it to be in all of the box sets because there's like a sort of trailer at the end of it. Doctor Who Times, it's called Doctor Who Times. And there's like a trailer at the end of it for season 13, edition of this documentary, as if they were going to continue it all the way through. But then they realised that trying to clear the rights for, pieces of news footage from the 1970s is just impossibly expensive and difficult. And so they never did it again. But it's a very cool little feature there. Just if you're sort of interested in, I guess, sort of history and news of that era at the same time as Doctor Who was going on, I think it's fascinating there, really. So, yeah, season 14, probably season 12 is one up there as well. I feel like season 18 is also quite a decent one. You've got Weekend with Waterhouse is a great feature in there, among other things. I mean, those seasons like 18 and 19 where they've got sort of 7 stories packed into them. They just feel like big box sets. There's so much stuff on there because you've got 7 full stories, and then you've also got Kanon and Company as well with season 18, which is always a little bit of fun as well. So yeah, I don't think I could pick one realistically. I feel like any of those sort of ones are quite good. I mean, I haven't watched all of 23, 24 and 26 just because I haven't got there in my marathon yet, so I just haven't actually properly watched through all of those box sets, so I've kind of got less of a full opinion of what those ones are like. But at the first what's that, 7 I think that we've got, I think probably 14, 18, maybe, probably 8 as well, are probably all up there. So it's so hard to choose, isn't it? There's so many good features in all of these releases that it's really just quite difficult to choose. And well, now we get to choose. We get to make our own choices because we're discussing. Let's move on to our next topic conversation. I'll come to you first, Bill. Let's just go with seasons. Like, if you could pick, say, I don't know, 3 seasons that you'd like to be the next 3 releases, what would you want them to be and why?
Well, funnily enough, I did do some notes talking about how I kind of wanted them to kind of finish off the 80s because, as good as it would be for them to continue stuff doing with the 70s and then start off with the 60s, I think it would be good if they did the 80s first, finish them off, because there's only, I think, 3 left to do for the 80s.
20, 21 and 25, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's what I think I would choose, at least probably one of them. So I'd choose, I think the strongest for me and probably the best pick would probably be season 25. Out of them 3, because like I say, I think it's the strongest, and in a way is kind of like an anniversary kind of season, so you could tie it into the 60th next year perhaps.
True.
And it would just be good to have more of the 7th Doctor and Ace on Blu-ray basically, and because there's such a great TARDIS team together, and I just think that season 25 is like the beginning of Doctor Who trying to get back on its feet, basically, and giving us 4 pretty good stories, or at least 3 very good, and then Silver Nemesis is perhaps the weakest, but is still like enjoyable enough. Like you can enjoy it in a way. It's very campy, but you can enjoy it for that. And then, so I'll move away from the 80s. I think for the 70s, I think I'd like it if they did season 13 next, because of course they've already done the other two for the Philip Hinchcliffe era. They've done the season 12 and season 14. So it'd be nice again to finish that off.
Yeah.
Because again, the Philip Hinchcliffe era is such a brilliant era during the show's history, and tends to be, I think, a pretty good fan favorite. So yeah, I think that would be a really good one to pick as well, because again, you've got another solid TARDIS team in the Fourth Doctor and Sarah Jane. And yeah, season 13, just that whole season again is just such a good season of stories. I don't think there's any that I don't at least like in that season at all, which, you know, is rare for a Doctor Who season, for them to not be one that I think, oh, well, that could have been a bit better, sort of thing. And then I suppose my third pick would just be just any from the 60s, really, because I think something like season 1 or season 6 is probably the most likely, or maybe season 2, just because, you know, we've got most of the episodes remaining in the archives for them seasons. So they wouldn't be as hard to do as the others would be for the 60s. And especially season 1 would be a really good pick again for the 60th, because that's where it all began. And it'd be really good to get some documentaries. I know we've had like plenty of documentaries already on the beginnings of Doctor Who and how it was created and everything, but it'd be nice to have something more, maybe some interviews as well, like with the likes of William Russell and Caroline Ford and everything, just talking a bit more about like what it was like and everything, and, you know, kind of what they did with Tom Baker on the season 17 release with Tom Talks. I would like to see that kind of approach with some other people from the show's history as well. Yeah, just kind of very candid interviews, because I think that is a really good format to have, because it just does something a bit new, because, you know, we've had plenty of interviews with these people before, so it's nice to kind of get something a bit different. I think I'd go with them 3 as my picks for maybe not quite the like next 3, like after season 22, but definitely within the next year. I think those 3, especially season 1, would be a really good pick if they could somehow figure out a way of tackling Marco Polo. I mean, I don't know how they'd be able to do that, because with the animations, you know, being state of limbo as they are right now, we'll have to see what they do with that. They could maybe do a reconstruction or something, perhaps, and, you know, maybe that's all it's needed. Or they could maybe, I mean, this might sound a bit like blasphemy, but maybe potentially skip it altogether in some ways, you know, kind of not really kind of have much for it because it is a missing story. But yeah, I think those are my top picks for ones that I'd love to see in the future.
Yeah, exactly. No, they're certainly all very interesting choices, that's for sure. I think I wouldn't be unhappy with any of those. So you know, maybe I feel like there's an obvious marketing opportunity there to try and release an Ace or a Tegan season before the Centenary special, but given that that's only 4 months or 5 months away, that's probably a little bit of a stretch unless they happen to be working on one currently. But yeah, it could be a good marketing opportunity, but we'll see. Ryan, I'll come to you next. What would be your 2 or 3 seasons you'd love to see from the collection range in the next year or so?
Well, I have to say, Bill, we're pretty much speaking on the same wavelength, because those were my 3 choices as well.
Brilliant.
Those are my personal picks. I would love to see season 1, because it was the first season, and I think they would probably do that because it was the beginning of the show, and it would make sense that they would do a 60s season set, especially that season, to be the one they would release around, especially around the time of the 60th anniversary. It's great beginning of the show. In terms of tackling Marco Polo, they might just do a thing of, we'll just have one disc be just an audio CD disc, and we'll just put that'll just be Marco Polo, and we'll not think about that. Or maybe they could just do a bit of a. I don't think they'll ever do this, but they could just leave a little disc space and say, "Oh, we'll just space in case we ever decide we'll do a Marco Polo disc, and if we do, just contact us and we'll send it to you," as that sort of thing. They could just do something like that. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they do that season. And yeah, season 13, it'll be a good way to round off the whole Hinchcliffe era, Robert Holmes era of the show. It's what many people, including me, regard as the golden age of classic Doctor Who. It's such a great period of the show, and yeah, and you were right, Bill. It's not, even though I'm not a huge fan of Android Invasion, it was okay. So there's no bad story really in there. It's just a solid season, and it might be Tom's consistently strong season. It might be that one. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they do something like that. And the fact that it was released 1973 and with the next year being 2023, it would be a little bit of a good fit in there. And yeah, it was season 25. Again, if they were going to do an 80s season for next year, season 25 is probably going to be the most likely choice, because it is it's definitely a celebratory year, because that was the show's 25th anniversary at that point, with stories like Remembrance of the Daleks and Silver Nemesis celebrating the 25th year with the return of Davros, the Daleks, and the Cybermen as well. So yeah, I think those are three good, strong seasons. They would definitely be my choices for next year. Although, having said that, I would do like one honorary choice, and that would probably be season 6, because I think the opportunity of getting a Patrick Troughton season released on Blu-ray, and even though there are some stories that are not as good, like The Dominators, Crotons, not bad story, but unfortunately it's saddled with one of the worst monsters in the show's history. And the less said about the space pirates, the better. But everything else is really solid. Like, it's just really good, strong stuff. So, especially the Invasion and the War Games, just absolutely classic stories. So, yeah, I think that would be a good pick as well. But so yeah, those will definitely be my choices.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Charlie, what about you? Have you got any different choices to them?
Most of my, two of my 3 original choices have already been picked, so I've sort of thought of a couple more on the spot.
Okay.
So firstly, what you were saying, Ryan, about season 6, absolutely, I would love that. It wasn't one of my choices, but yeah, War Games is my favorite Doctor Who story ever. I'd love to see it on Blu-ray. It'd be brilliant. Thanks. So yeah, my 3 would be season 7. Firstly. I love season 7. Obviously, we talked about it on our Best and Worst of Who podcast a couple of months ago. Just 4 brilliant stories. Also, it wouldn't be that hard to do Spearhead from Space, considering it's already got a Blu-ray release. So it's not actually that much. Well, it's 3 7-parters, but still. We've got some. Yeah, it might be a bit difficult in terms of special features. I suppose John Levine as Benton, maybe.
Yeah, you could get John Levine in to do something. I mean, there's pretty good opportunity to do location stuff as well, because there's obviously a lot of location filming in that season. But we don't have many of the cast of crew around it anymore, unfortunately. But that'll be the same challenge with all the 60 seasons as well.
But yeah, I feel it's just a brilliant season. I'd love to see things like Doctor Who and Silurians, Ambassadors of Death, and Inferno, I guess. The only other 3 in Blu-ray, I feel it'd be great. And yeah, it's a fantastic season. Probably my second or third favorite of the classic series. As for my second choice, season 16. I'm glad this wasn't mentioned, because season 16, I love season 16. It's fantastic.
It's definitely underrated.
Yeah, I feel the final 2 stories aren't the best. I don't really like Power of Prol. But Armageddon Factor isn't awful. Like
Yeah.
it's got some fun parts to it, I suppose. But yeah, the first 4 episodes are brilliant. I feel they could, they've got some very interesting opportunities with location footage, obviously for the Stones of Blood. Do some more stuff with Tom Baker, because who wouldn't love that?
Well, exactly. Yeah.
And just to complete a gap with Tom Baker, because obviously he's still got like 3 more seasons. Yeah, and so does John Pertwee's era. They both have 3 left. So as for my third choice, this might be a bit of a weird one, but season 20.
Okay.
I feel this is one of the more likely ones, since there've been rumours about filming in Amsterdam.
Yeah, that was about 3 years ago. I think they filmed a documentary in Amsterdam and then COVID hit. So
what the status is on that? Like, have they actually done some? Has Mark Strickson been out of New Zealand? We're not really sure.
Yeah.
This is a pretty scalding hot take here, but I kind of like season 20. I feel it's quite good.
It's not that bad. I haven't watched it recently. It's not that bad.
Yeah, it does have some good stories. Enlightenment is the highlight of that.
Oh yeah,
that's
for sure.
Great story.
Yeah, Enlightenment, Mordred Undead. They'll probably put 5 Doctors on it.
Yeah, they should do.
Yeah, and even Snake Dance and Terminus, like, they're all right. They're pretty good. But obviously, Arc of Infinity and King's Demons, not great.
I'm not going to rush to watch those again anytime soon.
No, I remember we talked about Arc of Infinity.
Yes, a while ago. Yeah, when I first watched it for the first time and realised, oh my days, it's a Gallifrey story. I'm supposed to love it because I love Gallifrey stories, but not this one. Not this one.
Yeah, obviously it's very marketable as well, considering we've got we can do stuff with Peter Davison, Janet Fielding, obviously with the centenary. It wouldn't surprise me if this is another one to be released later this year, like maybe even October.
Yeah, this is the most obvious one, I think. If they can get it ready, it'd make a lot of sense to release it next, given the relevance with Janet Fielding coming back.
I feel it'd be good as well, since the Jodie Whittaker era is ending then. Maybe have Jodie Whittaker, Mandip Gill perhaps do some Behind the Sofa, maybe.
We'd love that. We'd love to see that, for sure. Can you imagine them watching Arc of Infinity? Oh, that would be an experience.
That will be an experience. That will definitely be an experience for them. One of the worst stories in the show's history, and
that'll be the first one they watch as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Maybe we need to ease them in on a better season first.
Yeah, like 7.
Yeah, exactly. Get them on season 7 first, and then we'll be all right. Well, cool. They're really good choices as well. There's so many great choices. I mean, I feel like I haven't really got anything left that's original to say. I was going to say season 1 because obviously, 6th anniversary, it just makes a lot of sense, and we haven't had a black and white season yet, so it would just be great to have it, I think. Marco Polo, just stick a soundtrack on there or a reconstruction and be done with it. If there's an animation release in the future, cool, but it's probably not going to happen, so let's just go with it. So that'd be a cool one. I was also going to say season 7 because I just love it. I think it's it's the best season of Classic Who for me, and you've only got 4 stories, so there's also more kind of potential to do special features around it because you've just got more space with discs and things like that. So, and I they'd have to think more creatively probably with features for that. But I feel like, as I say, you could come up with something location related, go visiting old locations and stuff like that. I feel like there'd be some potential they could find there somehow. And then for another season, I was really struggling with this. Part of me, I just once, but I feel like it'd be quite interesting if we got season 15. Just because some of the DVDs were pretty not full of special features, shall we say. So I think there's a lot more that could be done with that as a season. I mean, obviously, yes, it's not got the greatest reputation with stories like Underworld in it. I like Invasion of Time personally, but outside of that, I mean, it's got the Sunmakers, which is good as well, but it's not the strongest season there's ever been, and budget does really show. But maybe they'll, CGI all of Underworld to make it better. I don't know.
I've got a little bit of a just thought here. What if they decide to do the Wilderness years?
There you go.
And to do the Paul McGann TV movie, as well as all the other stuff that was released between 1990 and 2004. Because there were some features that was some of the DVD that I was on that I think would be more fitting for the Wilderness Years set. So,
oh yeah, I'm pretty certain they're going to do one. I do think they're going to do one. It's just when they release it.
Yeah, and it'd be a good option to have like a one that's sort of dedicated to Paul McGann as well, since he's a classic Doctor. So I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to surprise us and decide to do the Wilderness Years.
No, that's a really good point. Yeah, I think it's one of those box sets that's kind of going to be the most niche one of the lot for sure, because it's like trying to sell for like a 45 quid box set for one TV movie and a load of other stuff that is very nerdy, even more so than normal collection box sets. So I'm like, you probably don't want to do that at the very end. You want to slot it in the middle of it and kind of get out of the way somewhere in the middle of the lot rather than making it the kind of final one. Obviously, unless they do New Who at some point down the line. But yeah, maybe we could get a Wilderness Years next year. Wouldn't that be interesting?
They'll be having more stuff like the more than 30 years in the TARDIS documentary and all the other stuff, including the Sharda Paul McGann audio version will probably get included, and the Richard E. Grant
Scream the Shout
probably included. Maybe they'll do the comic relief from Curse of Fatal Death in there as well, and who knows, maybe they could finally do Dimensions in Time.
Well, it's what we all want to see.
Oh boy.
Or maybe not.
Doctor Who Coronation Street crossover that nobody wanted, and the one that J&T wrote himself that ended up happening. So. I'm not sure whether it will ever get a physical release. There seems to be a lot of issues about actually being able to do that, but if it does happen, then it will be fascinating, and I'm sure we will chat a lot about it as well. Oh boy, that is going to be a trip. The Doctor Who equivalent of the Star Wars Holiday Special. Who would have thought?
Exactly. Well, on that note, I think it's time to bring this edition of KerVAM to an end. I hope you have enjoyed all of our discussions about the current era of Doctor Who and all the box sets of the past. Obviously, the main focus of our podcast is to talk about those box sets, and so we're going to be continuing to do that over the coming weeks. I'm hoping that between now and the release of season 22, which I'm predicting will be the 20th of June, maybe, or maybe the 28th of June, something like that. We know for a fact that the Dalek movies are being released, Doctor and the Daleks on 20th of June, and the Dalek Invasion Earth 2150 AD is on the 18th of July. Why they make such a long, painful title for that, I don't know. But I'm hoping that over the next few weeks we're going to cover off the last two collection box sets, I think, which we've never talked about before on the podcast, which are season 26 and season 14. So hopefully over the next few weeks we might have a chance to discuss a little bit more of those, but who knows, it might end up being something different when RTD announces another classic Doctor returning, and then suddenly that's the focus of the podcast, because that's just how it goes these days. But yeah, well, thank you guys, thank you all for joining me. Ryan, Charlie and Bill, have you all had a good time chatting about all things new and old Doctor Who?
Yeah, it was really good, and looking forward to the next podcast where we talk about a good season. If we're talking about season 26 next, it's definitely going to be a good season to talk about. Yeah, for sure. Be one of the better ones, yeah.
And it's just interesting to have, new Doctor Who news to talk about, rather than just, think of what can we talk about this episode. This time we've got a new Doctor, Tennant returning, and box set discussion. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. It's going to be a fun one. And Bill, I hope you enjoyed it as well. Thank you very much for joining this edition. But for this edition of KerVAM, thank you all for listening, and follow us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, check us out on YouTube, on my channel, EMS Productions. But that's it from this edition of KerVAM. We'll see you again very soon. Goodbye.